In interviews, it's common for the interviewee to know the questions in advance and to read the article before it's made public. This allows for the interviewee to prepare her answers beforehand. The preparation can result in at least 3 types of speech behavior: branding and presenting oneself in the best light possible, associating with other people, and advertising for one's work. This video will focus on how Meghan lives up to all 3 points, how her answers brand her as a person and her work. Meghan's statements reveal hidden personality traits. People have a way of telling the truth, especially when they try to hide the truth. Don't forget to like the video, and if you haven't subscribed, there's still time. Click the subscribe button and the notification bell for all updates. Welcome to the channel. The interviewer, Matt, asks Meghan how the time mourning the loss of Queen Elizabeth has been. After saying that there's been an outpouring of love and support, Meghan shifts pronoun from the impersonal there to the personal I, when saying that she's really grateful that she was able to be with her husband to support him. Initially, the focus is on her and how she supported Harry. She then turns the attention to how the Queen, according to Meghan, conveniently embodied one of her talking points: female leadership, and as a prerequisite, ambition. The focus on this demographic, or cause as Meghan would undoubtedly call it, is constant and a given in every interview.
How have we culturally allowed that to be the case? There's nothing wrong with talking about a woman's success or her ambition or her financial prowess.
You used the word ambition just now.
And it's a trigger word. Why is it culturally we are equipping girls and women to think that if you are ambitious, there's something negative about that?
It's an incredible country which has the highest percentage of female parliamentarians of any government in the world. And there's a really big push for me to work with female entrepreneurs.
Women don't need to find a voice. They have a voice. They need to feel empowered to use it. And people need to be encouraged to listen. And I think right now in the climate that we're seeing with so many campaigns, with Me Too and Time's Up, there is no better time than to really continue to shine a light on women feeling empowered and people really helping to support them, men included in that. It makes such a tremendous difference. So
this is one of many times where Meghan projects her own buzzwords or agendas onto other people. In this case, Queen Elizabeth, even though it didn't appear to be the Queen's agenda, how she thought of herself. She seemed to be focused on simply leading, rather than focusing on her gender as a cause. Meghan speaks personally about the Queen in one short sentence, how she feels deep gratitude to have been able to spend time with her, before she ends where she started, with Harry. People often end the way they started to let the other speaker know that their turn at talk is done. This is a turn-taking mechanism, a way of selecting the next speaker, in this case, Matt. Overall, judging by the word choice and syntax, it's sensitive to Meghan to present herself as supportive. She doesn't say anything about how she felt during this time, which is also underlined by the fact that she says, "It's been a complicated time." She says it, not I or for me or something similar. Next, when Matt continues with a more personal question, if anything has come up for Meghan in her relationship with the Queen since her passing, Meghan continues with remarkably short and generic answers. She says she's reflected on her first official engagement with her, and that she continues to be proud to have had a nice warmth with the matriarch. There's no mention of what she's reflected on, and the words "a nice warmth" are unspecific and vague. One of the main reasons for this can be found by exploring the history of the people involved. As implied in the Oprah interview, the main reason that Harry and Meghan left the royal family was Meghan's concern for her mental health, to Harry's surprise even. Harry went on to reveal that he was hurt by his grandmother's decision to remove everything in the exit agreement, and he used the word trap when describing the position of his brother and father. Meghan openly criticized practically everything about the royal family, saying that they didn't offer her guidance, and even made her Google the national anthem. A traumatic experience indeed. She went on to complain about them not being protected, that it hadn't occurred to anyone that she wasn't okay, that she had to learn 30 hymns, and that Catherine really hurt her feelings. In short, she blames everyone and everything but herself. This is blame shifting and a lack of ability or desire to take accountability, which deep down she seems to know. Because when describing how Catherine allegedly made her cry, she says that Catherine eventually did what she would do in a similar situation, to take accountability for the supposed wrongdoing. Aside from the obvious self-praise contained in this claim, the claim shows that the word accountability is important for her to get across, very likely because she knows she struggles with it. It's linguistic self-protection, avoiding the objection that she can't take accountability. Obviously, it's something she's thought about beforehand, and as we know, this interview had a very much arranged outcome.
We had Tina Brown on earlier, who said that this interview is like kryptonite for the royal family. Why do you think they agreed to do it?
The most important thing for them, before I do any interview, I have a conversation with whoever I'm interviewing and ask, tell me what your intention is, and I will tell you what my intention is, and let's see if we can align those two, because I don't want you to finish an interview and at the end of the interview say, I wish I had said. And
but Oprah, let's talk about...
I texted, I think they agreed to do it, wanted to do it, were ready to do it, because when you have been lied about for a series of years. Imagine that for over a period of months and years.
Meghan's many complaints, even about objectively insignificant things like learning hymns, reveal a prominent self-focus and sense of entitlement. The complaint suggests that she was busier looking for reasons not to fit in than fit in. More interestingly, though, her complaints undermine the leadership that she just finished praising. Obviously, she didn't like being there, so how can she praise the leadership? This is one of many examples of Meghan's terminology turning out to be shallow and meaningless. Shallow but nice-sounding words have a self-serving purpose, to give the appearance of being altruistic, caring, or whatever's needed. Overall, this brief passage reveals that Meghan doesn't want to dwell on this question. The longer her answer is, the higher the chance of making mistakes. And also, more importantly, there's a lot of history that Meghan and her fans can't ignore. Meghan can't praise in any detail what she's heavily criticized in great detail. When asked about how they've processed the loss as a family, she chooses evasion and focus shift. First, she uses the impersonal and generalizing pronoun you, giving a generic statement about getting a lot of perspective in big moments in life that make you wonder what you want to focus your energy on. The use of an impersonal pronoun to a personal question suggests that she's not expressing a personal, felt experience, but something that she has to say to get to another point, how energized we feel, as she says. The pronoun we is used correctly because Matt asked her a collective question, the whole family, but the content of her answer is only superficially related to the keyword loss. Instead, her answers focused on self-branding, about all the things they're building toward, their foundation and their self-proclaimed focus on philanthropy. However, these were all priorities before the Queen's passing, which undermines the claim that the loss made them realize all this. Furthermore, the self-awareness she implicitly expresses with the adjective philanthropic can be directly paralleled to her impression management in earlier interviews and speeches, drawing the conclusions for the audience, how she wants them to perceive her.
If we know how, and I certainly know how passionate I am, and Harry and I see the world so similarly in our approach of being very hands-on with things.
The kids' news show, they sent a camera crew to my home to cover the story. When the soap manufacturer, Procter & Gamble, changed the commercial, it was at that moment that I realized the magnitude of my actions.
It was really refreshing because given that I didn't know a lot about him, everything that I've learned about him, I learned through him, as opposed to having grown up around different news stories or tabloids or whatever else. Anything I learned about him and his family was what he would share with me, and vice versa. So for both of us, it was just a really authentic and organic way to get to know each other.
It was several years ago in 2014 that I was first invited to be a counselor at One Young World. And
In many ways at the time, I was probably a lot like each of you. Young, ambitious, advocating for the things I deeply and profoundly believed in. Have any of you today so far had that feeling, that pinch me moment where you just go, how am I here? Oh, it's a lot. I think I even saved my little paper place card that said my name on it. Just proof. Proof that I was there. And proof that I belonged.
She doesn't simply tell, she has a ready-made conclusion too, suggesting that it's more important to her to be perceived as philanthropic rather than simply doing the work, without being aware of whether it's philanthropic or not. This kind of self-awareness and ultimately self-praise is a red flag to many people. Lastly, pointing forward is one of the most common signs that a speaker wants to talk about something else. In many interviews, it's a way of simulating positivity while actually implicitly commanding the interviewer to shift gears. In his next question, Matt mentions the disastrous Oprah interview and an alleged snarky interview with New York Magazine. It's unsurprising, but still revealing that Meghan doesn't mention the Oprah interview in her answer. She deals with the New York Magazine interview by focusing on self-branding, that she's really trusting, open, and a survivor. I can survive it, as she says. This word choice makes her sound like a victim, as if she didn't say anything that deserved criticism. This was the interview where she continued complaining about the royal family, its structure, how she couldn't publish Instagram photos the way she wanted to, how she shared very personal details with Tyler Perry as opposed to Harry at the onset of their marriage. All things that she chose to share in public and that she knows that people will respond to in public. Meghan does this all the time, make a bunch of complaints about small things, and when she inevitably faces backlash, she blames people for being judgmental. This is a bait and switch tactic used by self-centered people and politicians. To be redundant. To the point about not being able to release photos the way she wanted to, the extreme self-focus is revealed by the fact that she willingly overlooks the safety measures that the royal family has to take, not to mention the image they have to uphold. In light of this, the protocol for releasing photos makes a lot of sense. Fortunately for us, and for Harry especially, Meghan chose him over Instagram, and we're able to read touching interviews like this one. She then goes on to talk about her podcast. This is a subject she obviously wants to talk about. Her frequent use of the pronoun I and the length of the passage reveal as much. She says she wants a candid, real conversation with her guests, that she wants dynamic women with strong histories on the show, that she includes things that are fair to them and also uplifting, and something we can all learn from, supposedly. This is a half-truth, to be generous, because as I've analyzed in previous videos, she uses the podcast to project her own opinions onto the guests and brand herself through this alleged candid and real talk. Meghan has repeatedly shown a prominent self-interest in the topics they discuss. In her interview with Serena Williams, a dear friend of hers, in case we had any doubt, Meghan expressed a supposed desire to get to the bottom of where negative labels come from and how we can move past them. This associating collective pronoun makes it sound like a general problem. However, in the very next passage, Meghan changes the pronoun we to I, indicating that her intention is actually to justify her actions and hence clear her name, because she says that she knows a thing or two about those labels herself. Meghan generalizes her own alleged struggles and feelings. In the same interview, she called Serena her little mermaid when claiming that perception is never really the same as reality. But wait, that sounds like a judgment, doesn't it? This word choice is identical to her word choice in the Oprah interview. She implied that her perception of the royal life didn't match the reality of it, before she went on to compare herself to Ariel, who lost her voice but got it back. So when she calls Serena a mermaid, she appears to be addressing herself. She uses Serena for association. Association makes it look like the speaker isn't alone in feeling, thinking, or experiencing something. In conclusion then, the podcast is very much about making her case through other people, but of course she doesn't mention that. When she says something we can all learn from, she means something that the audience can learn about her. It's impression management, which is a highly controlled process. Matt obviously noticed that Meghan left out the Oprah interview because he keeps probing. He asks her what the days were like after the interview aired. Meghan's answer is a study in deflection and impression management. She points to how she wants to be treated and regarded, rather than describing how she felt, or more important, how she made other people feel. Her answer doesn't contain concern for Harry or the royal family. She details a scene. When describing this scene, we get a lot of non-essentials, how she thought it was going to be a small and intimate birthday lunch, but that it was an extravaganza that her friend, by the way, deserved, as she phrases it. Initially, her narrative comes across as stalling, but also as a very prepared answer. She paints a picture of genuine love and support, saying she was greeted with warmth and kindness, and that the power of sisterhood and female support can never be underestimated. With the generalizations about sisterhood and female support, she appeals to readers to think of themselves as a collective rather than individuals, and to recognize themselves in this scene, and hence recognize themselves in her and how she felt. Meghan's appeals let the readers know that this warmth was a proper response to the Oprah interview, allegedly. Even though, as I've suggested, she didn't express a whole lot of sisterhood with Catherine in that interview. And she was busy criticizing the royal family, whose leadership she just finished praising. And this entire narrative, filled with non-essential pathos elements, is prefaced by the words, "The one thing I really remember." One is the restriction she puts on her memories, and really implies that there are other things she remembers but that she doesn't say. This pattern continues when she mentions Paris Hilton. First, she says that she's had a judgment about her, but that she doesn't like to come from a place of judgment. This is the beginning of her instructions to the audience not to judge her. The two major indicators of this is that Meghan compares her background with Paris's. She says she also didn't grow up pretty, but that she was the smart one. And she uses the word humanization about Paris, that she wanted to humanize her. Dehumanization is what she thinks she's been through. In conclusion then, she speaks about herself through Paris. She then goes on to supposedly criticize herself, but she actually criticizes people who are critical of her. She claims she realized that her perception of Paris was full of envy and judgment, two of the most dangerous things, as she claims. It's oversimplified and thus intellectually dishonest to claim that negative opinions are simply the result of envy and judgment, because there is such a thing as righteous judgment, and we all make hundreds of judgments each day. Who we want to associate with, where we want to go, if we want to answer the phone, etc. Furthermore, envy doesn't explain away questionable behaviors on part of the celebrity in question. This goes for both Paris and Meghan. Also, at what point do people have to face consequences? These are adults, and even though some of their statements may have been edited and exaggerated, editing and exaggeration can account for all their statements and behaviors. The truth is, they have said certain things, and they have behaved in certain ways. The reality of their actions doesn't go away simply because they have regret and want people to like them, so that they can have a good image, so that they can maintain their platforms and make money. Words can never change reality. This is a deliberate, immature way of thinking. Britney Spears used Paris as a shield too, for self-interest.
After I've lied and told the whole world I'm okay and I'm happy, it's a lie. I've been in shock. I am traumatized. You know, fake it till you make it. But now I'm telling you the truth, okay? I'm not happy. To be honest with you, the Paris Hilton story on what they did to her to that school, I didn't believe any of it. I'm sorry, I'm an outsider, and I'll just be honest, I didn't believe it. And maybe I'm wrong. And that's why I didn't want to say any of this to anybody, to the public, because I thought people would make fun of me or laugh at me and say, she's lying. She's got everything. She's Britney Spears.
Meghan keeps hammering this type of impression management, instructing people how she wants them to react to her, which is so obvious that it is or should be considered condescending. Could I just actually consider for a second that there's a person there, as she implicitly commands? It's always easier to call people judgmental than take accountability for one's actions. And unfortunately, it's worked in many cases, because who wants to be seen as judgmental? Words have power, and people like Meghan know it, as well as they know that a lot of people respond sympathetically to emotional appeals, no matter how contrived or unoriginal they are. On the other, more positive side, words also have meaning, and meaning separates the truth from empty jargon. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more videos. See you in the next one.